Hello, everyone. My name is Mark from the Misplay Podcast, and you're listening to EternalJourney, everyone's favorite Eternal podcast.
Welcome to EternalJourney, the podcast.
Greetings, all my knights and Punta-Ones. You are listening to EternalJourney, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and it is episode 98 of the podcast where we are going to be bringing on a handful of special guests to do a constructed variation of our show, focusing on the latest expansion, mini campaign, mini bundle, whatever you want to call it, named Buried Memories, which is going to be the expansion to the Bastion Rising one. Apparently, I don't know 100% about the lore, but apparently we're diving beneath the Bastion to uncover some history or whatever, the dark secrets of the whatever government is up on the Bastion. Anywho, but want to welcome on the show my good friends, as always, starting off with Darth_Herman2. What's up, friend?
What's up, gentlemen? I'm here for some constructed knowledge today.
Figure out what kind of aggro cards you could sneak into your decks as you're burning people out.
Yeah. See what cards are fun.
Sweet. And as usual, on the other side of the internet, we have Johnholio. What's up, buddy?
Yo, new cards hype.
New cards. Oh my God. So much brewing.
Let's go.
All right, next up we have a fellow member of Team EternalJourney and a gentleman that is absolutely murdering the Tuesday Night Eternal scene, just throwing up fantastic numbers on a regular basis. And second place in the ECQ, right? It was an ECQ, or was it a regional? I don't remember. Anyways, Iplongno, what's up, man?
That's doing good, man. And it was a summer challenge, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, with that sweet at any cost Feln deck, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it was awesome. Did some fantastic gameplay and just consistently doing great. Fantastic constructed player. Good at limited too. We've had you on the show before. You're no stranger. So I figured it'd be good to see your insight on some of these new cards being a brewer. And then, of course, fellow Team EternalJourney member, a guy that also is throwing up great Tuesday Night Eternal tournament numbers, and just all around great person. Enjoy kicking it with them. Haven't been able to play some Heroes of the Storm with them yet because they're way out of my league, but I want to welcome on the show AsheAcer. What's up, friend?
Hey there, everyone. And I'm not out of your league, mate. I'm just out of your time zone.
Fair. Though, I mean, you are top ranked Grandmaster, and I'm like not even ranked, so there's that.
Nah, tiny details.
All right, but real quick, a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, you can catch the video version of this show as well as other various draft videos and constructed videos on EternalJourney. Just search it up on YouTube or look youtube.com/EternalJourney. And there you go. Of course, I'll have all the cards that we talk about on the screen here for you if you are a more visual person. Of course, you can catch me streaming live every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. And then for shout outs, I want to give an ongoing shout out and thank you to all the people that continuously sub to the channel. Check out the YouTube, subscribe, like, all the good stuff that just kind of lets us know that you're listening and you're enjoying the content and getting better and better as a community. I feel like we've been the tangent stream lately because I think every other stream we've gone on 20-minute tangents about things. Tonight's tangent was 90s cartoons, but it was still a great time going down memory lane. So thank you to all those people that do that. And of course, a couple of great shout outs to Wolvie LG. Welcome to the Jedi Order. Dizzy Sick coming in with a year of subs. Jeez, I can't believe you've been looking at this ugly mug for that long. Ulrich and Lady Ulrich coming with 6 months, and then AK Lepity for 9 months. Thank you guys so much for all the subs. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, that's gonna do it. So are you guys ready to talk some constructed brewing with the latest campaign, Buried Memories?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we are going to follow the order that it is in the Eternal Card Finder and whatnot, so you guys can follow along at home or on your mobile devices if so. First up, we have Flash Fry. This is a 2-fire fast spell and it reads deal 3 damage to a unit and give it Void Bound. It loses its regen and can't regenerate this turn. So correct me if I'm wrong, but even though it is worded second, it will lose its regen before the damage happens, right? So regen will not prevent this damage. Can anyone confirm that?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Yeah, so right now we're seeing this is going to be a big thing against, obviously, Grafter, Fine Grafter. That's a big one. And then just kind of being able to keep things in the void, lower cost units to avoid Krull shenanigans, getting them back are the two biggest things we're looking at with this. Ash, since you went ahead and chimed in, buddy, why don't you go ahead and start off first? Where are you at on Flash Fry and why?
I think you pretty much covered the important parts. So Expedition, this is a godsend, just because mandrakes are a thing, and mandrakes, especially the early mandrakes, have regen and are just annoying to deal with any type of damage removal. So this will help quite a bit in Expedition, I think. And as long as Krull is around, you can always use this to permanently get rid of some 1 per mesos, maybe a Gerol before it gets its 6 primal buff. I do think, however, that the only dealing damage to a unit could potentially make this, like, say you're running a Blazing Salvo market, you probably still just run the Seer main and Flash Fry in the market, because the unit clause is very specific, and generally this will be in some form of aggro decks, and yeah, you still kind of want the option to go face in them. So I think it's a good card, and I definitely think it sees play to deal with regen units, specifically from mandrakes, and it might see play to kind of tech against the Krull decks. But I think it's kind of still a notch below Seer in the decks that want it.
Fair enough. And then the cool thing too is it also shuts off the smugglers and a couple of smaller units for reanimator shenanigans in Throne. I feel like not a lot. Like obviously a lot of their early game is just kind of milling themselves, but you can knock out, you know, once again a smuggler so they don't regain access, or I mean, I guess to an extent it combos, right, John? I'll send it to you over here in a minute, but if you deal damage with this and it doesn't quite kill something, and then you sear it, or vice versa, right? You deal 3 damage after blocks, and then you kill it with Flash Fry. Either way, it's gonna get the Void Bound, correct?
It should, as far as I can tell.
Fair enough. What do you think with Flash Fry?
I think Ash basically said everything I'm thinking, and I really like that he pointed out the salvo market, because that, you know, depending on shifts in the meta, that could also be relevant in Throne as well. But other than that, yeah, this is mostly an Expedition card, and yeah, the lack of its ability to hit sites or go face kind of pigeonholes it just a little bit. But like he really mentioned, those annoying early regen units are really where this card's gonna shine. Kind of Mandrake tech for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then IP, I'll start you off on the next one, but is there anything did you want to add on Flash Fry before we move on?
The same as both John and Ash have said. It's so relevant because there's just 2 relevant keywords in those decks of the card: Void Bound and Boost and Greed can't regenerate, which is really prevalent in Expedition. Throne might see a niche use of this, but it won't shine in Expedition because it is just a narrow. It just targets cards. It just targets a specific type of card. If it targeted face, it would see more play and might even replace Seer. But as of now, with just a limited target, it will shine in Expedition.
Mm-hmm. One other thing to add, it also hits another card that's already starting to see play that we'll see a little bit later in the Tri-Faction by Volk. Is essentially 3 health and has some Void Resurgence shenanigans as well. But we'll talk about that here in a minute. All right, next up, and once again, I'll send it over to you to IP first. We have Mid-Chief Salus, right? John, I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Am I missing something? Mid-Chief Salus? Is that correct?
I mean, I don't know yet. We'll find out if we hear, you know, someone from Dire will pronounce it, I guess.
Let me see if I can mess it up. I'll go My Chief Salus. There you go. is a 3/2 Oni soldier for 2 fire with quick draw, and then amplify 2, play Song of War. Song of War is essentially a 2-cost spell. Your units get Warcry, and I did do some testing on this earlier, and multiple Songs of War do stack. So if you, for example, will amplify this guy for this lady for 2 or for 4, I'm sorry, for a total of 6 power, amplifying twice, then you will give all your units Warcry 2 instead of just simply Warcry 1 or Warcry. All right, so Long though, where are you at on Maid Chaif Salus?
This card is kind of unique, in which I can see it being played in a fire deck or even just Stone Scar in Throne, but is it really that good as a 2-drop? Maybe, maybe not. Throne 3/2 has quick draw. It seems okay. Uh, I don't even want to read the Amplify 2 because when will Song of War be relevant in any constructed format? The two far pips that it requires is also like kind of limiting to you because it really shines on turn 2. In the later turns, it might just be a simple bear, if you guys know that term in Magic, like just a 2-drop 2/2. Uh, well, I guess it's a soldier, but how many fire soldiers are there in Eternal right now to make it relevant in Expedition? In Throne, maybe as an Oni, maybe Rakano Oni can make it work. I'm just a bit confused on the card. I want to like it, but I also have reservations on it. Fire in this Minnesota seems to be one of the weaker factions for me. And like, I don't know. I'll have to confer with the others on how they see this card.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. All right, John, what do you think about Salus?
Yeah, I'm a little more hopeful on it. I definitely want to try it out, just kind of with traditional, like Rakano Onis and Throne. I think it'll be pretty solid there, right? Um, but in Expedition, like I don't know, I think it's just a solid, early fire card. Which I don't know if y'all have tried to brew fire. It's surprisingly lacking in that department, actually. You kind of have to like trend the curve a little upward to get good units everywhere. So I don't know. I think this will see some play, and I don't know. I've seen a lot of actually mono fire on the ladder in the last couple days, so I think this will slot right into like that deck that people have been playing, and I think this next card makes it a little more enticing as well. And I think it kind of gives fire a little bit more of like an amplify matters kind of payoff of sorts because it still is like Song of War on this card in particular, but in a package of cards, maybe it'll have more of an application, right? So I don't know. I'm interested. I think it'll be at least good.
I mean, we played Cut Purse, right? And Cut Purse has, to a certain extent, a higher upside than this, and then to another extent, a lower upside just because it's X1. I mean, it does have a room, it gets bigger, but also is pretty heavy influence requirement, et cetera, et cetera. I think the one thing about Song of War that I kind of like about it is that, like you mentioned, you're okay playing a 3/2 quick draw just to have an early curve out. And then later, it might make your chump attacks a little bit better, just slightly, but who knows? But Ash, what do you have to add about Salus?
I think baseline, we pretty much covered it. It's got 2 relevant creature types, but yeah, soldier I don't think matters too much in the colors it's in. Yeah, I don't think this is a throne card. Like okay, so definitely not in Stone Scar. It's a 3/2 quick draw for 2 is fine. I'll take that, and maybe that's good enough to make it one of the better 2-drops. But it's trying to do so many things that it doesn't all fit into one deck, as it were. Like the amplify cost is nice if you don't have anything else to do with the power, but even like fire aggro decks that I see nowadays and Stone Scar decks, they don't go very wide. Like, we're not playing the Grenadin drones or like stuff like this that goes wide. So even if you get a Song of War off, you might be hitting like 2 or 3 units with it, and I don't think it's going to be very impactful. So yeah, fire aggro in Expedition will take this gladly as just its baseline value. But yeah, I don't think this is going much further than that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I guess we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But that is a theme we'll see here as we continue on, where they're putting a lot of text on a lot of these cards. So it's interesting to see what directions to go in with them. And maybe that's what they try to do, is give something for everyone. They might have just condensed that a little too much. Next up, we have Inferno Den. This is a site. This is a 4 durability site for 5 fire. Your units have charge. And then it has Erica's agenda. First up is bottoms up. That is the 1 cost. Give a unit +2 attack this turn. Amplify 2. Give a unit +2/+2 this turn. Inferno Dance is a 1 cost fire spell. Play a 1/1 elemental with Reckless. Amplify 2. Play an additional elemental with +1/+1 more than the last. And finally, Conflagrate, which is a 3 cost. Doesn't matter. Deal 3 damage to an enemy unit. Amplify 5, deal 3 damage to an additional enemy unit. One thing of note with this is the fact that all 3 of these cards have Amplify, and so the first one that you play off of it, obviously you're going to have to play attacks for it because you're paying the 5 for the site. But the 2 that happen on subsequent turns, you'll essentially not have to pay its cost and still have all your open power that turn, should you choose to amplify it. So keep that in mind. And then finally, Erica, we get Erica Inferno Wing, which is a 6/5 flying quick draw Valkyrie, I believe. When Erica attacks, double the attack of your other attacking unit. All right, John, I know you've been playing with Elevator a little bit to give your units charge and whatnot. So let's start off with you. What are your thoughts on Inferno Den?
Yeah, I think this is it's pretty exciting. You know, it's the first modifier site. So I think no matter what, people are going to try and play this. But you mentioned that all the cards emphasize like amplify. So I think one of its best homes may be in some kind of amplify synergy, an expedition, right? We have like the overloader and like the dune painter and things like that. Maybe something with that, or even just I forget the name of it, but that relic that really amplifies your power up. Every turn it goes up one.
The Forge.
Yeah, thanks. The Forge. Yeah, so maybe something like that where you just get a bunch of power. Maybe can help there. But the site's static ability is really powerful, but because this thing costs 5, and I don't know, the site kind of has, it reminds me a lot of the Den, the Menace site from a previous set, where it's like the only thing it had was a deal 3 damage to kind of protect itself, and that never quite was enough. Right? It was really fragile. Like, the payoff was the unit, and it was almost impossible to keep that site alive long enough to get the unit out. So at least this one does have a mode that makes units, but they're reckless, right? So they only get the 1 turn to potentially block, and it's ground only. So I think this is going to require a lot of building around in your deck to make it actually good. So I don't think you can just jam this in any fire deck and have it be great, right? But yeah, I think it's got some applications for sure. I'm excited to brew with this.
One thing really quick that I think is worth mentioning, I'm pretty sure that's the way it hangs. If you are going to play this and intend on playing the Inferno Dance the first turn you play it, make sure you attack first, because I believe that's the only way that, once you play the Inferno Dance, they're going to have charge, so you can't skip through your attack phase, right?
Right? There's no way to just be I skip it. Yeah, there's no way in Eternal to do that unless you've actually attacked already. That's an interesting point.
So keep that in mind when you are playing this card, where if you don't have units in play, whatever, your Inferno Dance is going to end up attacking that first turn. So wait a minute. Yeah. So if you have a unit, they can block the turn you play them if you attack with the unit first, then do it. So it's only the turn you play it, actually, because after that, any subsequent turn, it's going to fire off at the beginning of your turn. Wow, so that's a little more awkward than I thought. And then obviously bottoms up gets a little bit worse because part of what makes bottoms up so good is that you can do it post blocks, right? People block and then you pump in ways that work the best in or most in your favor, versus here they have to see it coming. So that's interesting, that the way they selected these cards. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, let's send it back over to you, Ash. Where are you at on Den?
So you actually kind of made the point I was gonna make with the Inferno.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Well, no worries. I was gonna make it kind of more general, because the thing is, right, you're playing a 5 power site that incentivizes you to play hard aggro, right? Anything you play after that, you're assuming you're just gonna charge in with, right? And then your site just dies. You're not. A site requires some protection at least, and yeah, John made the right point of just a conflagrate on that site is not really going to be enough to protect it against any form of a mid-range deck, and neither is giving all your units charge. I don't think you're going to be at a point against most mid-range decks, which I think is the biggest threat for this. I don't think you're going to be at a point where you're just going to kill them with Inferno Den, so you just lose it the next turn, and that seems kind of bad. Like, you have to be ahead on board to play this, which I don't think is something that aggro typically does when you're at 5 power. Like, you're kind of hoping to get to your reach when you're at 5 power and like just kind of burn out the opponents. Like, I don't think this does exactly what they intended it to do. I don't think, however, that this does not see play, both because it's a monofire site and we don't have that yet, and people are going to try it, but also because I think there might be a build where this is possible. Maybe you want some endurance units in there. I know you play Praxis or something. Get some endurance units in there, something like that.
I'm thinking this needs to be something like maybe a market card, to where you play it against control. Once they stabilize or wipe your board and you're short on playables, you come in with this and start catching back up. Or maybe changing the conflagrate to something like Flash Fire that does damage based on your fire influence, so it kind of scales up in that regard.
Yeah, I think if you have a big power turn, right, the Inferno Dance can like kill out of nowhere, which I suppose is a sort of upside if yeah, as you say, if they just wiped your board or something like that. Yeah, so yeah, that could potentially be a use for it.
IP, anything?
I really wish this card costed 4. I mean, making it cost 3 is making it a bit OP, in my opinion. 5 is it's a bit too slow and makes it more of a market card, as the Jedi. It incentivizes the fire deck to play it after a board wipe, but like making it cost 4, like 4, drop this on 4, maybe just play the bottoms up or conflagrate if the opponent has a feature. Then on turn 5 you can Inferno Dance for wait. Well, I forgot. Nah, it's okay with its costed, but on by turn 4, the curve of 4 to 5 will like Inferno Dance and everything makes it a bit better. I have nothing more to add to what John and Ash has stated about the card. Power level, it seems just like on the power level Bastion of Hope, the Mono Justice site. I guess that's it.
Next up, we have Time. This one's pretty straightforward. This is Impound. This is a one-time slow spell, and then you can either kill a relic on an enemy player. Impound cannot be stopped by Aegis, or draw a sentinel from your void. Of course, once again, a relic on an enemy player, so this one does not get rid of curses. All right, sending it over to you, Ash. Tell us about Impound.
It kills Sling. Thank you. It kills Sling. And I guess it kills Wildfire as well, which is pretty good. But it kills Sling. No, I think this was necessary. Like all of the relic hate just kind of feels bad when you're playing against any deck that actually puts a little bit of effort into protecting their relic. So yeah, I really like that they added this card. Um, yeah, it even has I don't think they needed to add the relevant line of text that is draw a sentinel from your void. Like I I think I would have been fine with it just having the kill the relic on the enemy player part because yeah, the drawing a sentinel from your void kind of makes it where it's not even a dead card if you wanted to like main deck it in a sentinel deck or something. I don't think it's gonna happen, mind you, but I don't think they had to add it. But yeah, I think this definitely sees play in markets to combat Sling while it's around.
Yeah, I'm pretty straightforward card. I don't think we're gonna have too much to add about this. IP, do you have anything about Impound?
It
IP?
kills Sling. It kills Sling. That's what the Ash said. This will see more play in Expedition because relic removal in Expedition isn't that great. Like there's just a few ways to interact with relics in Expedition. In Throne, I don't see I don't see that this will be played in Throne that much unless Ling will just like overtake every deck in Throne. Because there is still a lot of better relic removals in Throne. The second part is negligible, but it can have some fun uses. Like, I guess in Throne I can get back my Sandstorm Titan or something. But this will see a lot of play in Expedition, which I think is the focus of Dark of the Digital in making this campaign, because a lot of it seems like it'll find a place in Expedition rather than in Throne.
Fair enough. John, anything before we move on?
Not great points. Like I think maybe the Sentinel line was tagged on there just to give it a chance to be like main decked in a deck in Expedition, just to like really kind of push Sling out of the meta. But I don't know. I don't think Sling has been that oppressive or anything. So, but I think it's really nice that they printed this card. It also notably gets under Dazzle, which is like the other interaction that would hit this potentially in a Sling deck. So Sling is wrecked if you're playing this card.
Yeah, I think the Sentinel part is actually relevant because we saw play. I mean, not now, not anytime recently, but when I started playing Dark Return, saw play for a 1 power, get something back. So I could see this being the same thing, especially in Sling decks where it has counterplay, and then you could easily get one of your Sentinels back from your Void and play it again to activate Sling in the same turn, etc., etc.
Sling Mirror Breaker.
All right. Well then, sending it back over to you, IP. Logistics Expert is next. This is a 0/1 soldier for 1 time. Overwhelm. And then +1 maximum power. And then wait, of course, there's more. Amplify 4. Logistics Expert gets a +4/+4 permanently. So ramp early. And then later on, you could play as a 4/5 for 5 with Overwhelm. And then you could play it as an 8/9 for 9 with Overwhelm, and then +1 maximum power. So that's like what was it? Brum? The was a 7/8 Overwhelm, ramp 1 something for 6, whatever. Anyway, Long though, what do you think?
For me, one of the in the top 5 best cards of the set. It's a strictly better initiate of the sound, which in the case of of any card game or even Eternal, like one power or one mana dorks that give off additional power and mana, it's really great on the early turns, but it sucks on top decking it or drawing it in the later turns. But this solves everything because if you reach 5 power, it becomes a 5 costed 4/5, which has the significant ability overwhelm that can just make you push damage and can be a great mana sink. I really liked the card when it was spoiled a few months ago, and I'm hoping to see this more in any time decks, both Throne and Expedition. And it's also a soldier, so we might see Ombre soldiers or a tri-faction soldier deck that's gonna rise up with new legendary card that will be discussed later.
Fair enough. John, what do you think of Expert?
I think IP had a great breakdown of this. Like it's definitely the first card we've seen that I think will see any significant amount of throne play. The only like you said strictly better, but I mean being a 1/1 does kind of give you a little more play versus some of like the more aggressive decks you see in throne like Yetis and stuff. But like the fact that we just have 8 instead of only 4, one cost mana dorks is actually like a pretty big deal if you're trying to play a ramp deck. And like yeah, this mitigates that whole drawing it late it's bad thing. And I really do think this is going to see some play in Expedition and a soldier deck like you mentioned as well. So I'm excited to see some brews with it.
Nice. Ash, anything to add before we move on?
I think that pretty much covers it. Like it's a 1 mana dork, which is already good, and it doesn't suck if you draw it late. This just sees play. It's a good card.
Fair enough. All right, next one is a card that I'm interested to brew with is Ruse War Beast. This is a 5/6 beast for 5 double time. Summon, give a unit in a void destiny and put it into your deck. Your other units that share a type with it get +1/+1. All right, so there's a lot going on here. Once again, give a unit in a void, so it could be your void or your opponent's destiny. Put it into your deck. So either way, regardless of which side it goes on, it will go into your deck. That means that it's not going to trigger Destiny right away because you're not drawing it. You're simply putting it into your deck. And then finally, units share types. So if you draw, for example, a Valkyrie, then all the Valkyries in your deck are going to get +1/+1. If you pull out a beast, or let's say, I'm assuming it works with dual faction things as well. Like for example, the Oni soldier that we saw earlier, Salas, if you pull that, then all your Onis and all your soldiers are going to get +1/+1. So there's that. And I think that just about covers it. And of course, Scream target, what? It's 5 cost or less. Anywho, John, let's start off with you, buddy. What do you want to do with Ruse here?
Yeah, this is an exciting card. Giving something Destiny is very powerful. Like very powerful. They have to be careful with that kind of thing. And I think they were properly careful with this because if you want to like, it just throws it into your deck somewhere, right? So you have to then be able to there has to be a way for you to like get that card and use it, right? And No One to Hold 'em, which has seen a lot of play recently, doesn't work with that because like even if it has Destiny, the thing on No One to Hold 'em preventing it from being played for 5 turns overrides that. So like that won't work, for example. But there are other things like an Expedition and Throne that'll let you straight up fetch the unit. I can think of multiple cards just an Expedition, like Whispering Wind, and there's another. I can't remember the name, but in the last full set, it's like it's an Amplify card. I think it lets you like search out a unit from your deck, like 1 cost or less, or I think it can be you can pay armor to make it cost something that costs more. So like that's one way to do it. And there's all kinds of janky fun ways to do this, but I think there's some good ways to do it as well. Whispering Wind is definitely one of the best. Yeah, like even if it's like just a 5/6 for 5 is like kind of okay already, right? And like the fact that you can do it to your opponent's void means you can kind of use this like as void hate as one way to do it, right? Like maybe have it in your market in a deck where you don't even care about abusing it or anything. You just want some way to interact with your opponent's void or something. This lets you do that, and then you might randomly draw this Destiny unit. It's just it comes into play. You get a draw off of it. It's like it's just nothing but upside, right? And if you never draw it, who cares in that case? I think this card's really good. I don't think it's just gonna see play in every time deck or anything, but I think it's really good. What do you guys think?
IP, where are you at?
I share the same sentiments. I share the same sentiments with John. This is going to be a fun blue card. Even without this ability, it's a 5/6 for 5 is still decent. I guess you can, even in just a mid-range deck, it's okay just so you can put back one of the threats you had into your deck. But as such, it still doesn't, the RNG of where it places its own new deck is gonna be a bit, it's gonna be a bit bad, even for someone who has luck like me. Uh, I hope I can see more of this in Expedition or even in Burn.
Ash, what about you, buddy?
I'm surprised IP didn't mention Team Eternal Journey's signature Xenon. Everybody plays Xenon deck. Um, like for me, this is just one of the better 5 drops now, especially in Expedition. Like Throne has more stuff, but I think this is just a solid mid-range unit. Even if you play it fairly, right? There's kind of 3 angles to this card where you can play it fairly and just have it be a 5 power 5/6 that might incidentally buff your units, but just grabs a threat from your void that died and just randomly puts it in your deck. Kind of leaves you up to RNG whether you get the advantage out of it, but at least there's a potential advantage. Then there's the point that John made where you can just use it as incidental void hate. So in Throne, you can maybe just gimp a reanimate deck by having it at the right time. You can't rely on it, but it's definitely not a terrible thing to be able to do. And then there's the like tutor up your unit that you found or that you put in your deck angle. I've seen discussions going on about 2 things in particular. So there's the 3 power draw and amplify card from your deck. So you can put a unit with amplify back into your deck and then tutor it up, which seemed interesting. And the other thing I saw was Roost Dragons, where you just use Dragon Forge to fetch up whatever you put back. So yeah, those are kind of the angles to take with this card. But I think it's just I love this card personally. I'm going to put it in most of my mid range decks.
Nice. I like that. I like the Dragon Forge kind of mix in there. Sweet. We'll see how we see Ruse on the ladder. Next up, we have a card that's drawing my attention. I haven't gotten a chance to play with it just yet, but I think it's going to be either deceptively good or just jank. We'll find out. This is Jetpack, a relic for 1 justice. Once per turn, you may pay 2 to give one of your units flying this turn. If it hits the enemy player, they can't play spells until your next turn. So that means from the time that you hit with this unit up until the beginning of your next turn, they cannot play any spells. After the 3rd use, sacrifice Jetpack. So essentially it runs out of fuel, I guess, and you just discard it, or the 3rd person to use it crashes into the wall and explodes without the unit actually dying, I guess. Let's send it over to you. Back to you, Ash. Where are you at on Jetpack? What are you thinking about this card?
So in a more kind of serious kind of setting, my mind goes to Kira, right? Like it's a justice card that gives evasion, which might like signal some kind of it might not be enough to do this, but it might signal some kind of return of the trickshot ruffian days of Kira, because they're not completely gone, but this might enable that to be more of a thing. Like it can protect your Kira and your other relevant units. Like I don't know if that's good enough, because of course you have bubble shield and all that, and this doesn't draw you a card off Kira, but that's kind of where my mind goes to first. But yeah, on the other hand, it's just a good market card, I think, against control, especially. I just it's it's a good effect, and I like the effect. Um, I I I just don't know if it's too situational. And then I'm not talking about giving the flying because that's just baseline giving evasion, but the shutting off enemy spells is like there's so many situations in which it just doesn't matter. So yeah, I think this is more of a market card than anything else, so that you can curate when you grab it. But yeah, it might see some play in Kira as a kind of interesting little card, but I think that might be a little far fetched. It's cute, is what I'd call that. In yeah, I think I'd call it a cute card that might see a little bit of market play, but I'm not overly. Uh, yeah, I don't think it does too much competitively.
I mean, you slap it on the latest Sveya, and now you lock your opponent out of everything for a turn, right? Boom, did it.
Yeah, it goes in Svetchelok. Yeah, definitely. But yeah,
All right,
Svetchelok would rather go for just locking the units out with replication cell.
all right, John, what do you think about Jetpack?
I don't have a lot to add. I don't know. I think I think it's gonna only really find a home in like some kind of expedition like sentinel build where it's like cares about relics in some way, probably wants to sacrifice this. Like that's the only deck that might main deck this. I think some will have it in the market, kind of in ways you mentioned. I doubt any Kira deck will want this because it like I mean, although it can make it jump and do the spell negate thing, I
You
think
have Crescendo.
yeah, exactly. I think you're just happier to draw a card like with Crescendo or something for that effect in most cases. And I mean, even the Harud versions aren't playing Mighty Leap already, which is kind of like this and stuff. So, and like I mean, people were trying to get cheeky with the Hammer of Authority, right? And that went out real quick, right? People, it's just like, do we even care? We're just gonna give it intrusion or bubble shield anyway. We don't care about your spells. So I don't think Kira wants this. I think just some Relic Matters deck probably.
Fair. IP, anything before we move on?
Nothing more to add. I think both Ash and John have covered so much with the card.
Cool. All right. Next up, we have Smite. This is a fast spell for 2 justice. Kill a unit with different attack and health and current health. I'm sorry. Once again, kill a unit with different attack and current health. What this means is that you can do something post combat or after damage spell or something that adjusts the health of the unit, and as long as its strength and health are uneven, it will kill the unit at fast speed, which is fantastic. I've already enjoyed this card in Constructed. Because of that, you can accommodate it where even if you're like, well, all they have is 4/4s and 3/3s, I'm stuck. You ping them with a Var's Favor, or you block profitably with like a 3/6 or something, and all of a sudden Smite's on the board again. The fact that it's a fast spell combos really well with Overwhelm units and the usual 2-for-1 aspects, etc., etc. I think it's a pretty straightforward card, but just in case, IP, do you have anything particular about Smite?
Treat it more of like a combat trick spell, a post combat trick spell, or it is a removal. It is a versatile spell, and I really like the DWD printed a card like this that gives us so much options to in combat mana.
One thing I will add is I also significantly I like the artwork significantly more than Just Dessert. So thank goodness I get to look at a card that I actually don't mind looking at. Ash, what do you think about Smite?
I think, yeah, this card, I think, just sees play based on the meta, like any removal spell, really. But yeah, I think having this as a unique effect, just it's another option in removal suites for control decks and whatnot to maybe combat some of the units that you otherwise can't with your removal package. Like I can't think of specific units at the moment that this hits that you would otherwise struggle to hit, but it's just nice to have it as extra.
Most of the mandrakes, I would think, like the one. Well, I guess like the ones that do all the shenanigans or whatnot.
Yeah, the 3/5 especially is hard to hit with damage removal. So yeah, maybe that is one of the ones in Expedition to look out for. But
I
yeah,
think the interest.
mm, sorry, go on,
Uh,
go ahead.
I think the interesting thing is the more removal they add to the metas that aren't straight just kill a unit. I think it's really interesting because then like there's a back and forth in the metas where people are playing certain units to combat specific removal that people are playing, and then in turn the removal that decks are playing is going to change, and so the units change again, and it leads it to a constantly fluctuating format, right? Where Annihilate is great, and then Annihilate's bad, and then Annihilate's great again. You know, right now it's Send an Agent, but et cetera, et cetera. So
I think you could probably just make a whole podcast episode on removal suites in competitive scenes. It's ridiculous, yeah.
boom, put that in the books. I like that. That's a solid idea. Alex, throw it in there in the notes, man. We gotta schedule that. John, do you have anything? I doubt it, right? I mean, it's a pretty straightforward card, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just reminds me so much of Just Desserts, right? And like, I kind of brushed that off at first, but the more I played with it, like, the more I found kind of niche uses or like things I didn't see that where it would work. And I think this is going to be the same way. Yeah, it's great. You guys made some good points.
All right, well, we'll keep it in your direction, John. Fort Smasher is a 3/3 Sentinel for 3 Justice. When Fort Smasher hits the enemy player, play a unit with cost 3 or less from the top 3 cards of your deck. Discard the rest. So typically we've seen most of, actually I guess it's about even now, where we see cards get tucked back into the bottom of your deck and or thrown into the void. This one throws them into the void, and even though it is a Sentinel, it doesn't care what unit or what type of unit it gets. As long as it's a unit and it costs 3 or less, you could put it directly into play. So one thing of note is that it still will let you amplify. So if we are running a card with amplify, you can do that, as it's not going to charge you for putting the unit into play, etc., etc. I think Jack stands out to me, right, where you can hit Jack off the top and then activate its damage spell. But before I go any further, John, why don't you tell us about Fort Smasher?
No, you're starting off great. Yeah, it has some applications I think in both Throne and Expedition. Anytime you can, you know, play play cards for free, uh, that's a card I'm going to try and find a way to play. And I mean, I think this one's like starts off with a fine stat line. You know, it's like 3/3 for 3. Like that's a little anemic when there's 4/4s for 2, but it just requires some deck building considerations, right? Like you're going to want this in some kind of aggressive deck, probably with ways to push this guy through. Um, and obviously playing plenty of units with cost 3 or less, because they don't only looking at the next 3 is not very many, right? So, and the fact that discards is also pretty big because of all the I think that's something that you'd want to happen more than putting them on the bottom or something, because it's a Sentinel, so there's plenty of ways that they've printed in Expedition, at least recently, to get your Sentinels in particular back. So yeah, I think this is going to see quite a bit of play.
Nice. IP, have you done any brewing with Smasher yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I like the card. It's just a good creature when you hit the when you hit the enemy player, its value skyrockets up. Hopefully we can see a deck that can take advantage of it. Or if not, we're gonna be starting some brewing here.
Ash, anything before we move on, my friend?
I like this card in like a Rakano aggro setting maybe. Like I think it's gonna be relevant when somebody figures out the maths of how many 3 or less uh 3 cost or less units you need to run in your deck to make this worth it. Right? I think once that's figured out, we'll know more about how strong the card is. My first like thought with this is, well, two things actually. Is like, one, you can activate it with pings from like Calderan Gunsmith or something like that, which might be a bit janky, but it's funny. And 2, it can find both parts of the belligerent Yeti combo, and that always gets my blood boiling. So, I might try that. But then again, green has Kilo, and Kilo is better. So I don't know. Maybe I'll try it. See if I can combo off with it.
Yeah, definitely. If you do, send the list to me so I can make a video for it, throw it up on the YouTube, and give you some mad credit.
Absolutely.
Eternal Journey, breaking formats in all kinds of intricate ways. All right, jumping into Primal, we have Refraction. This is a fast spell for 3 Primal. Play a copy of an attacking enemy unit. Sacrifice it at the end of the turn. Pretty straightforward. Once again, they have to be attacking for it to be turned on. And then, of course, whether it blocks or not, or whether it dies in combat or not, you will have to lose it at the end of turn. I believe it should get its summon trigger, correct, John?
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So there's that as well. Yeah. All right. Let's see. I believe it's on you, Ash, right? Yeah, I think it's your turn now. So what do you think of Refraction, Ash?
I really like this card. I think this is I think IP mentioned with Logistics Expert, he's easy one of the top 5 cards in this set. I think Refraction on my list has a spot. There's so many relevant summon effects that could potentially absolutely destroy your opponent, right? If they're not expecting it. Just kind of off the top of your head, imagine, I don't know, opponent has a Shadow Icaria, right? And they're in combat, you're behind on board, but you have this card in hand. And then they full swing, you Refraction the Shadow Icaria, kills one of their units, and block the Icaria with yours. There you go, bam, done. This card has so much potential upside, which I think outweighs the potential downside of maybe having to, use it on less strong units, as it were. I think it does kind of depend on what's being played unit wise. So if everything that's being played has a higher toughness than it does, or higher health than it does power, then it might not be good enough. But I love this card, and right now I'm playing Elysian midrange in Expedition. This is in there 100%. It just feels really good.
See, I don't know. I'm kind of on the opposite end of it personally, just because of the meta. I agree with what you're saying, but because, for example, Elysian midrange, everything that they're attacking with is higher health than strength. And then there's, in the Vision deck, there's Diana and Roland, and I don't know. I feel like it's gonna do work, but I feel like the meta currently, even some of the mandrakes and stuff like that, can kind of take. I mean, it wrecks an aggro deck, but most of the aggro decks are just kind of trying to get in there. But I'm not sure. I guess we'll see. We'll have to see how it plans out. IP, where are you at on Refraction?
It's very, very situational. It depends on your opponent's board. Is there any relevant summoning effects? Are their creatures good enough that they can be killed if they attack to one of their own? It's also very meta dependent on ladder. Depends what meta decks are people playing. At most, I can see it as a market card. I could be wrong. It could be like a 2 or 3 of in control decks, maybe. Also, what Ash said, Shadow Icaria interaction seems really good. Or if we find ways that there are units within 2 effects that are really good, but I can't think of any on top of my head. But yeah, very situational card. It can be a hit or miss.
I'll tell you what, though, if you definitely Refraction my Shadow Icaria, I think I just concede at that point, because that's just absolutely kill a unit, block, kill another unit, end of turn sack it, get rid of all your oh god, it just sounds so gross, Ash. Now you're gonna give me nightmares. John, what do you think of Refraction?
I think you guys said most of what I'm thinking. It's very meta dependent, but I'm interested to play this maybe in like a expedition film, like controlled ish, mid range ish deck of some sort, right? Like, um, I like ideal situation, like in my head, Christmas Land, like they're attacking with like a shadow merchant, right? And then I get to, have a deadly unit blocking, get in my market, which obviously has a crawl in it. And then suddenly there's even more units in play blocking or whatever. Like, sweet, sign me up for that. Um, but yeah, it's pretty meta dependent, unfortunately. But I like it. It's sweet.
Also, don't forget that the unit that you copy goes into your own void because
Mhm.
you sack it.
Yeah, without influence requirements.
Yep.
So like if an opponent's jet is attacking, you can play save a power, refraction it, and like kill both of his other smaller units. Then you just block their jet with this jet. That's some cool interaction.
It's also pretty good against Maveloft Huntress, or right, Maveloft
Mhm.
Huntress,
Oh my god, it's so good against Maveloft Huntress.
which I mean that's a card that sees a lot of play.
Also, it does keep actually the influence requirements because it doesn't steal the card, so it doesn't
Wait,
remove the influence.
well, then that kind of makes it a little bit worse when it puts the unit into your void, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, any reanimate effect doesn't really care about influence cost.
Okay, fair enough. How is this good against Maveloft Huntress though? I'm
Well,
a
because
little
when it goes
confused.
for a killer attack, you can
Oh
play a
no,
copy of it, and you can potentially like, you know, imbue it even, and you know what I mean. It can wreck
Mm,
that.
no,
But
because it doesn't ambush.
yeah, it doesn't ambush though.
Oh, that's a good point. Actually, it doesn't ambush.
Eh, but
And then you don't get to kill her because it's on their turn.
dang it,
Yeah, no, that's
I
bad.
was
Actually, good point.
surprised by that idea.
delete that
I
part.
mean, you get the plunder. Okay, cool. No,
Delete. Delete.
I was like,
Delete.
what am I? I'm like, wait, am I missing something?
You're
Like,
right.
It's really
The
mad against
ambush.
Maveloft. You're right.
You're
I
right.
you
Dang
you've
it.
been hanging out with
I'm
me
just
too
like,
long, John. You
it's
pulled a me.
attacking, but you're right about the ambush and the stupid killer. Ah,
Fair enough. Hey, that's good. That's why we're assessing, right? It's our first time looking at these cards.
yeah. Like they came out today. I didn't really look at any of the spoilers. Like, been just doing brewing today. I haven't gotten to this one yet.
All right, Bracers of Subdual is a card that I think is way too cute. I was trying to brew with it today. I was just like, I can't imagine a world where this is payoff, but I could be wrong. IP, we'll start off with you. Bracers of Subdual is a 4 primal relic. At the start of your turn, sacrifice Bracers of Subdual to draw a card for each different health among your units. So you need to have like a 2 health and a 4 health. Wait, for each different. Yeah. So then because it's 2 different, you would draw 2 cards, right? I believe that's how that works.
Yep.
At the end of that turn, play a beast with +1/+1 for each card you played that turn. So a couple of things. First off, at the start of your turn. So it is not a May ability. You have to do it, and it's the turn after you play it. So on your turn, you play it, send the turn back to your opponent. They pass back to you. Then it will automatically get sacrificed, and then you will draw X cards based on the health of your units, etc., etc. So right there, your opponent has a chance to start removing units off the board and stuff to prevent you drawing more cards. The other thing is the beast gets not for how many cards you draw, but how many cards you played. So let's say it's late in the game, you somehow manage to draw 5 cards. If those cards are expensive, or you can only play, or like 4 of them are power or whatever, then you're still only going to get a smaller beast, essentially. The other thing is it does say play, not cast. So you could potentially still, using power will count as 1. And I think that's it. I don't think I missed any of other interactions. At the end of your turn, play. Yeah. Yep, that's pretty much it. So, IP, where are you at for Bracers of Subdual?
Let me start off with the good one. Its premium art looks really, really amazing. Now to the bad points. It's too much of a set of cards. It's a cute card. I think you'll get the most of its effects if you're already way ahead on board. The beast doesn't matter too much, and like it takes up a lot of time to set up and just to draw cards. and it needs to happen on the following turn. So your opponent might just board wipe or kill some of your units so that you'll at most maybe just draw one card. It's too much. I don't like the card, but the art is amazing.
I agree. All right, Ash, what do you think of Bracers of Duel?
The the easy comparison to make is with World Pyre, right? It's a 4-power relic that does nothing the turn you play it. And I think World Pyre has shown enough that yes, potentially you can take turn 4 off to do something big later. But in the case of World Pyre, do something big means play a 12 mana like Aid of the Huru and just completely wreck your opponent's day, right? On turn 5. This, yeah, not so much. It doesn't even it doesn't even guarantee that you draw any cards. If you're not ahead in any way, shape, or form, you're not going to be drawing cards. Like that's just a fact. And then you're going to get what maybe a 2/2 or a 3/3 beast at the end. That's yeah. No, this is. I like the design. Yeah, no, it's not good. It's not that good.
You know, like they always seem to like. I mean, you guys know I love brewing with some jank, right? Like Direwolf always still manages to print a card that's just too much for me, and this is that card. Like too many words, too much setup. It's reminiscent of like, what was that, like Stolen Clock something, where you had to have like a unit of every 12 different units of sizes. It's like I've never seen anyone play that card either, so I don't know about this one either.
All right, fair enough. John, let's send it back over to you, though, so we can talk about this card. Evolving Olzile?
Sure.
Right?
I don't know if that's a real word, so I've never heard that before.
Evolving Oz. I'll just shortcut it and take some letters out. Oz. Yeah. Olzile is a 5/3 bird beast for 5 primal. Flying regen. When evolving Olzile hits the enemy player, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. Summon, you may transform a relic or sight into a 4/1 soldier that can't block. So once again, you may transform a relic or sight into a 4/1 soldier that can't block. A couple real quick, also just notice it doesn't say enemy player yours, so if you have a sight that's just sitting there not doing anything, you can turn it into a unit. Or once again, if you for some reason are playing a relic that doesn't do much after you play it, which seems weird, you can do that as well. But obviously it's mainly focused on the opponent. Another thing as well is that it does say transform, not destroy. So it does not target Sling, because Sling has that great text that says your units can't be transformed. And it has to hit the enemy player to draw 2 and discard 2. So it's good card filtering and hand filter. There's another word I'm looking for, but anyway, hand sculpting, I guess, for lack of a better term. And then, but it has to hit the enemy player. So if you attack a site with it, it will not trigger that. And I think that covers everything. So John, tell us about Olzile.
This is one of the first cards I brewed with today. Like I've been doing a lot of weird void stuff in Expedition, and I've been really missing not having the card Gust Rider, right? Which is like a 1-mana version of that effect. It's onslaught, so it's a little easier to have work. But I mean, this thing's a 5/3 flying regen, which are great keywords. I think it's just a solid card. I don't think like every deck wants to play this or anything. Like I think if you're looking for the draw 2, discard 2 effect, you're really going to want to play this card main deck. If you want some primal relic or sight hate, right? Like primal's really lacking in the relic hate department, so I think all of those decks, this is a great market card for those. So I think it's great in all those ways. It's as soon as you play the card, it has some really unfortunate art. Yeah. It's not great. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah. it's bad. Anyway, card's great otherwise. Art's like exact opposite of the last card, which had good art.
Great. Now I'm gonna have to check it out.
Dude,
All right.
I mean, it's like vulgar. Let's just say it's vulgar.
All right. Duly noted. All right. IP. What do you think of this evolving bird beast?
Why isn't it a dragon? Looks like a dragon. Why isn't it a dragon?
Bird beast.
It's a beast. it's
I mean, at least it has flying, right? At least they gave something with wings flying.
it's 5-drop 5/3. It can make, I get, it can also hit an speaking circle, I guess, or like Garden of Omens and Throne. What are the other relevant sites? It can't it can't transform Sling because of Sling's passive effect of cards cards you have can't be transformed. I guess it's fine. When it hits the opponent you can filter your cards by drawing two and discarding two. I think it's okay, but does it deserve the legendary? I don't think so. I think it could have been just officer, and we could have had something else.
Fair enough. Ash?
Yeah, I don't know where I'm at on this card, to be honest. Like, I put it in my Elysian midrange deck that I was alluding to with Refraction earlier. I don't think it finds a home there. I think what John said is true. Not every deck is going to want to play this. I can see this being in a Feln expedition list running the 7-cost Vara Limitless, I believe, where the discarding 2 cards actually fuels your deck rather than hurts it, because I can't think of many mid-range decks, which is where I see this card mainly. I can't think of many mid-range decks that want to discard 2 cards. Like, the drawing 2 cards is nice, but yeah, I think you're gonna like want to hit yourself a lot for having to discard 2 cards from your then good hand. But yeah, I think the base rate on this card is pretty good. The regen is not to be underestimated. But yeah, I think this has a place. I think it sees some play, but it's a little bit of a niche, I think.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, that was Primal. Going into Shadow, we have Dark Purveyor is a 5/3 cultist for 4 Shadow. And this is one of those cards that just, they kind of pulled everything out of the kitchen sink and threw it into this in hopes it makes sense. Because gosh, does it not when I was trying to brew with it today. Though Spifferific, shout out to them. They seem to have a bit of a sweet film deck that kind of made this work. So Purveyor, once again, 5/3 cultist for 4 double Shadow. The first time you deal spell damage each turn, so each turn means it can happen on your turn or your opponent's, play a 1/1 Grenamender, which of course is a 1/1 Grenadin that when it is sacked or die, entomb, gain 3 life. Summon, give one of your other units plus 1 attack or strength for each unit in your void. Okay, yeah. Ash, what do you think of Purveyor?
First things first, this card kind of cursed my finals because it got spoiled in the Tuesday Night Eternal stream, and I lost the finals in like 5 minutes after that. So bad mojo. But the card itself, it's like, I can see where they wanted to go with this, because of course it's in the Grenadin theme, right? Like, you're sacking a lot of Grenadins, they're going to end up in your void, and then you're going to be able to make good use of the summon effect. I just think you either put it in for the spell damage clause or you put it in for the summon effect, because I don't think Grenadins run a lot of damage spells. Like, off the top of my head, you're going to have your typical seer effects, maybe. I don't even know if they play those. But most of your damage comes from your units themselves, where there's like units that say sack a unit, deal 2 damage. The ticking Grenadin that just deals 3 damage when it dies. Like, I'm not sure how often you can proc the spell damage clause, and as you said, there was a Feln list using it, which I think didn't have even a single way of proccing the spell damage. I could be wrong on that, but yeah,
Yeah, they were running Overgrowth and Vara's Favor is
right,
what
okay.
I saw.
Yeah, but even that, right? It's just like 2 cards that are probably 4-Ors, okay, but it's 2 cards in the deck that make use of that. I don't know. I think it's trying to do two things, and they're too different from each other to make use of both of them. But I don't think it completely counts this card out. I I'm just gonna sit back on this one and see where it ends up.
Fair enough. IP.
I think I guess we saw a Spifferific on it. Looks it looked okay. I've seen a lot of Discord service that they were making that on it. I I think it might find a place in Expedition in Throne. Maybe not too sure. I really want to see how people will play with this card.
All right, I guess I'm gonna do some exploring since I won't just get sit back and wait on it. John, do you have anything about Purveyor you want to add?
I mean, I'm gonna try it for sure. Like this is this is the kind of build around effect I want to brew with. The only thing I'm weary about is like the 3 health. Obviously, is a little suspicious. I hope this is like I hope it doesn't see a lot of play and Direwolf buffs it to like a 5/4 at some point, right? Then it'll be I think a little more playable. But I think there's like something there for Expedition for sure. I'm gonna see if I can make this work.
Yep, fair enough. All right, sending it back over to you, IP. We have Smuggler's Toll. This is a cursed relic for 4 Shadow. When you take damage on your turn, deal 3 damage to the cursed player. So obviously, you play this on your opponent, and then when you have cards that deal damage to you, your turn, it will deal 3 damage to the opponent. This counts things like vows that ping you for 1. That will definitely trigger Smuggler's Toll as well as other cards. So like the Jackknife will do it, things like that. So IP, where are you at on Smuggler's Toll?
I really have no idea how to make this deck aside from vows. Do I want it as a main deck card with like things that ping me like Jackknife, the unit that deals damage, Rip Knife Assassin, Vows? I guess you can make it on a Stone Scar deck that and that um takes advantage of you just pinging yourself. It could
There's
also
2
be
sites that ping you.
I guess
Junkyard
Junkyard.
and the Den or whatnot, they both ping you as well.
I guess yeah, I guess you can make it in a Stones card deck with the Fire Legendary Dragon thing. Oh wait, no. The dragon needs it to be damaged, not you. So I guess you can make it in a Stone Scar suicide deck, I guess. Like you just ping yourself and hopefully you can kill your opponent before you can off yourself, I guess. What do you guys think, John and Ash?
John, where are you at on it?
Yeah, I like obviously this is a very build around card. I'm sure there's at least one playable, maybe not good, but I think there's something. I think there's a deck you can play with this and actually win some games. And I think some games that would otherwise be winnable, you'll probably kill yourself in the process, and it'll be fun. I'm not sure if there's like a real competitive deck like right now in the game like leaning that hard in on this effect, but I don't know. It's a fun build around.
I mean, you don't have to necessarily put in a suicide deck, right? Because it's in Shadow, so you have ways of lifesteal, and you can also combo it with Argent Port for armor. So it's not. You're definitely pinging at yourself, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a race to try to get your opponent to 0 before you are, right?
I guess you can go with turn 4, this turn 5. What's that dragon that pings you and you gain menace influence? What was that card again?
Carve it.
carve it, yeah, you can maybe do it like that.
Yeah, there's a ton of cards that you can kind of work with this in Throne. There's not a lot in Expedition
Yeah.
um right now. I mean, you know how cards like this, like maybe the next set has a lot of support for this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might grow a deck for this, but I don't know if it'll be good or not.
Ash, do you have anything to add before we move on from Smuggler's Toll?
I think it's too expensive. I think if they would have made it like 3 power and deal 2 damage to the curse player every time you take damage, might have been better. Like
Hmm.
it's just too expensive, I think. Question though, Diabolic Machinations, does it ping you each separate time for each amplify?
It shouldn't, like, all that. It should all that damage
It's
should happen at once, and then it should
yeah.
only count as like taking damage one time.
Okay, yeah, then that's balanced. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only things I can think of as well is just like taking advantage of vows, taking advantage of things like the impending doom and carvet that ping you at the end of your turn, bloodseeker as well. And then yeah, as you mentioned, there's the sites that do it. Like maybe there's some sacrifice deck there with the 4 power sacrifice site that pings you when you sacrifice something. I think it pings you, right? Oh no, wait, it pings the opponent. Never mind. Yeah, okay. That was I thought it pinged just self as well for something. But no, there's ways to take advantage of this, but I think it's just too expensive.
Fair enough. Let's go ahead and move on. Next up was the card I was brewing with. I wanted to try it in like a Stone Scar Grenadin deck where you have a bunch of cheap units to attack with. But we ended up playing with, thanks to Cal Shadowstep, another EternalJourney player. We ended up putting in like a Stone Scar, not mid-range, but a lot of berserk units to try to capitalize on that and play into the Valkyrie Warp. This is Hired Muscle. This is a 6/4 giant rogue. Don't know exactly how that works, but sure. For 5 double shadow, when one of your units with 2 attack or less attacks, deal 1 damage to the enemy player. So a couple of things on this is it is Hired Muscle that's doing the damage, and that'll come into play in a moment. And 2 is that it is 1 instant for every unit. So if you attack with 3 units, it's gonna ping 1 damage 3 times. And then Valkyrie Warp, which is that new mechanic where if you have a Valkyrie in play, Hired Muscle will have Warp. And if you do, you will gain Lifesteal, which once again is relevant because that means all the pings now are going to start gaining you life, as well as having a 6/4 Lifesteal on the board. All right, John, let's start off with you. What do you think about Hired Muscle?
Yeah, I think this might see play alongside obviously Valkyries, right? Like, I think I would only really want to play this in a deck where I'm I'm either an Argentport or maybe Stone Scar, probably Argentport. Um, you know, doing things like other Valkyrie Warp, and maybe even FJS, right? But I just want to play this card off the top. I wanted to have Lifesteal, and I think this can help you, like, if you're already wide with Valks. I mean, the turn you play it, you basically, it kind of replaced itself. And if you're attacking with like 4 Valkyries or whatever, uh, that's just 4 additional damage. So, and it gains you a little life and then leaves a blocker. I think that's probably playable in a deck like that in Expedition for sure. Not really looking to play this anywhere else, I don't think.
Okay, yeah, I want to see this. Like, I was thinking of that Grenadin deck because I want to play it with Gear Cruncher, to where you play this, you attack with a bunch of Grenadins, they take a bunch of damage, they block a bunch of them, then you play Gear Cruncher the next turn, make a bunch of dudes again, you're like, oh. So yeah, one other, yeah, and then obviously this thing works well at pump effects, post combat or post blocks. All right, Ash, where are you at on Hired Muscle?
They tried, like this is one of the 2 Valkyrie support cards in the set. The other one we'll get to later on. And yeah, all I can really say is they tried. Like the fact that we're already talking about decks that it goes in, and you haven't really mentioned a specific like Valkyrie focused deck says enough, really. Like I like the card just as a card, but as a Valkyrie support card, I don't quite understand why they gave it Valkyrie Warp.
I think, just to touch on that, I think Rakano Valkyries, it could have a place. So it'd be Ambition, which is a little awkward, but we did build in the variant that Cal was talking about. We did try to look at the Valkyrie Warp thing, which, believe it or not, it came into play quite a bit. But the only two that really mattered, because honestly, all the shadow, the 2 attack or less Valkyries for Shadow are pretty garbo, honestly. And then in Fire, it was the Grafter, which can't fly, and then obviously Stonehammer, and then all the other ones were either higher attack or in Justice. So it's a little awkward for sure. I'll give you that much, but please continue. I just wanted to kind of like throw that little out there since you mentioned it.
Yeah, like Stonehammer is the big thing that comes to mind as a kind of synergy card with this. But yeah, I think if you do get to Valkyrie Warp it, right, then you're never gonna be unhappy about it. But yeah, I think Valkyries took too big a hit to be at the top of the meta at the moment. Also relevant, it dies to send an agent, and I know this is it dies to removal argument, but it dies to send an agent, and that is one of the things that Valkyries was pretty good with, is that their units didn't die to send an agent. So yeah, I'm not too high on this card. I think I'd better leave it at that.
All right, fair enough. And that's going to do it for all our mono faction cards. So now we're going to go into our tri faction cards where, oh man, these cards are going to get pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and dive right in. This is the one that's standing out the most, which I got to brew with a little bit today, and it's pretty interesting, not going to lie. This is Volk, the Auto Forge, is a 5/3 Sentinel Explorer at 3 creation. So Fire, Time, Justice, Endurance, Overwhelm, and then Entomb, play Volk's Heart. Volk's Heart is a 3-cost relic that reads pay 3 and sacrifice Volk's Heart and another relic to play Volk from the Void with a +2/+2. All right, starting off with you, IP. Where are you at on Volk the Auto Forge?
Seems like a really good card. It just it just dies to the one to the other removals that was spoiled in this that was released in the same campaign.
Flash
Uh,
Fry, yeah.
yeah, Flash Fire. Have you tried? I know you played it on stream, but have you tried the interaction of like having 2 bolts and just sacrificing the heart to get the 2 back, or do you just get?
I did not have that play out on stream, but someone in chat said that you simply pick which one you bring back. So
Okay,
you
so
still will only get 1 activation, 1 heart for 1 Volk.
I guess it will see a bit or a lot of play in Expedition, as there are not a lot of cards that gives you Void Bound aside from Flash Fire, and I guess like 1 or 2 more cards that I can't remember. Aside from that, a 5/3 for 3 is really good. It is a bit taxing to play it on curve on 3 with the tree, you needing all the influence that it requires, but it will be good going to the late game as well. Hopefully we can see more of these, and hopefully we can see Sentinels get a foothold in Expedition.
Mm-hmm. Ash, what do you think about Volk?
Without having seen it played out yet, the overstatedness of this card kind of scares me. It's a 3 power 5/3, which in itself is like, it's only got 3 health, not the best. But still, it's got 5 attack. It's pretty good. And then they also slapped Endurance and Overwhelm on it, which seems a lot to me. I think Endurance might be a bit overkill for this card. yeah, they kind of keep it in check with Flash Fry in the same set as IP mentioned. So I think depending on how popular Flash Fry is, it will also affect this card. But then again, it's only Flash Fry. It's only one card in the whole deck that would be able to counter this. So I think this is going to see a lot of play. Bringing it back with +2/+2 is also like, you know, a very relevant thing, and it's pretty easy to build the Sentinel deck, I'll just call it, with enough Sentinels to be playable and then enough relics to also bring back Folk. So yeah, I think this is a really good card, and I think this will see a lot of play.
John?
Yeah, this is a sweet build around, and there's a ton of support for this kind of this card and everything it wants to be doing in Expedition, right? We've seen like at least we already talked about 2 or 3 cards in this campaign. Like this Fort Smasher thing can play a Volk, right? For example, it's another 3-cost card. That Jetpack looks sweet with it. Impound maybe in the market, and then maybe you're running like Restorative Process main deck to get all your relics and Sentinels back. Like, I don't know. It's only one pip of each, which is kind of reasonable casting requirements for Expedition. Yeah, this is a sweet build around. Definitely gonna see a lot of play.
Yeah, I think it's super strong. Restorative Process, super strong. That's why I was running the brew I did today, and it's great. All right, next up.
I would like to add, actually, I just noticed, quite relevant, it's a Sentinel and an Explorer.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a couple cards that actually care about that in Throne, which might be relevant.
Yeah, and Throne running this with Waystone Gaze just could be ridiculous. Like, you get a 7/5 overwhelm endurance back as well as an 8/8 giant. Pretty legit. All right, next up we have Ditro Conqueror. This is a 3/5 Valkyrie warrior for 6 ambition, fire, justice, shadow, flying, charge. When Ditro attacks, each enemy unit gets -1/-1 until your next turn. John, yeah, what do you think about Ditro?
I don't like this card. I think for 6 mana and with fire, justice, and shadow, I think you'd basically rather just play Rizon. Maybe kill something with 3 health instead of the temporary withering type effect. I don't know. It's kind of anemic for the stats. I don't know. This card doesn't really excite me at all for like top end. In in those colors, I'm sure I can do better, right? I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing that this stands out to me at the current, because it's even till next turn, so it doesn't necessarily negate the recursion of like the mandrakes, right? The only thing I could see this thing being relevant is counterplay to Roland because it kills all the Reapers, but that's about it that I can think of off the top of my head. Anywho,
you're already
Ash.
probably playing the Justice Sight, right? That's great against Roland and a lot of other things, right? With the curfew effect.
Yeah. Yeah, Steyer's not beckoning, Steyer's tower.
Yeah.
Ash, what do you think of Ditro? Since you had mentioned Valkyries earlier.
Yeah, my mention of Valkyries earlier stays the same. They tried to give Valkyries something. They didn't. I think John hit the nail exactly on the head. You're at 6. You're in ambition colors. You're playing Valkyries. Just play Razan. I think that's pretty much the conclusion.
Yep, I like that. I'm totally cool with that. At least the Ditro, the version of Ditro in the bigger set, in the main set is decent. So it wasn't a complete whiff on the character itself. IP, do you have anything to add about Ditro before we move on?
Silver said. I have nothing more to add aside from that.
Fair enough. All right, so sending it over to you, Ash. We have Gren Iron Martyr. Is a 1/1 Grenadin cultist for 3 Menace, so Fire Primal Shadow. Gren can't block. All right, I'm off of it. Entomb, draw a card. Your other Grenadin get +1 attack. Increase the damage of each spell in your hand by 1 permanently. A lot going on here, but I'm not really liking what I'm seeing. Ash, yeah.
Yeah. What is this? Just what? Why? Okay, this has Acantha syndrome. Why can't it block? Like, I get that it has an entomb effect. That is relevant. Right, but like, you're taking turn 3 off if you're playing this turn 3, which means okay, don't play it turn 3. But like, even if you like combust this, right, which is one of the better case scenarios. Okay, you kill an enemy unit, you draw a card, you might buff your board a bit. Like, I can see situations where you get the nuts with this card. You have a full board of Grenadin, you buff your whole board, draw a card. As so with Combust, you kill an enemy unit. I don't think the increasing the spell damage in your hand is going to be a big thing for the same reason as we talked about with Dark Purveyor. I don't think Grenadin runs a lot of damage-based things that are spells, except for maybe Blazing Salvo or something like that. But yeah, no, I understand why it can't block, but still, why can't it block? I just don't like that line of text on any card. Like,
well,
no, yeah.
It's pretty much going to be up to you to get her dead, right? Because it's a 1/1, so your opponent's just going to take it. Be like, cool, all right, I'll take the 1 if you attack with it. I mean, it's a Grenadin, it's a cultist, so those are two tribes that care about sacrificing or putting things in the void. So there's that, but yeah, I'm with you. IP, do you have anything positive about Gren?
I think somebody broke it on testing, and that's why it's costed like that.
Okay.
Nothing else aside from what Ash have said. It could have been a good card, but I think one of the testers good, and that's why it was nerfed before releasing. I could have seen it like maybe a 2 or 1.
Mm-hmm. John?
Yeah, like it just seems pretty weak, right? Like it obviously wants to go with in some kind of Tesseract deck, but like that's a card I've already. I mean, it just doesn't really work. Anytime your opponent plays a Tesseract, you just play your Permafrost, or like, I mean, that's not great, but if any of your single target removal, right? Like, what competitive deck can't deal with this? One big unit on the opposing side, right? So I don't know. I think that like it's so all in on this strategy. Like I don't think it quite can work. I think it's like meme tier only probably right now. But yeah, I agree with what IP said. Somebody probably broke it in its real form, and they had to just pre-nerf it.
I mean, like, it's in the same colors as that Pyromancer combo or whatever. Not Pyromancer, Pyrotechnic or whatnot. So, like, the +1 damage making it a 5, so when you double it, 10. I don't know. Like, there's a bunch of things that do what this card does, just not all in one card, but I still think you'd rather just have the variations of it, right? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I guess we'll have to see if someone's able to break it, but I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze in this one. I think you're working too hard to just get medium rewards. Next up is Hyphos. Reach Captain. This is a soldier bird, 2/1 soldier bird for 1 tradition. So time, justice, primal, flying, amplify 2, stun an enemy unit, or play a 2/2 weapon on Hyphos, or draw a random sigil from your deck. You are drawing the sigil, you are not playing it. It is random, you don't get to pick it, so it may or may not be fixing. It is not a permanent buff to Hyphos, it is a weapon. So if Hyphos dies and you recur him, they're not going to be that. They're going to come back as a 1/2, but it is a weapon, so there are potential attachment synergies, like for example Watchwing support. We'll see all these triggers, and stun an enemy unit, and then amplify too. All right, yeah, that's everything. Sending it back over to we'll go to IP. Where are you at on Hyphos?
What doesn't it do? What doesn't Hypos do? It it really shines with when you cast it at 3 and it only scales up. Stun an enemy unit, you can just stun a relevant blocker, or if you're in that of a pinch, you can stun on defense. You can make it a 3/4 flyer for 3. That's really good. If you're low on sigils, you can just draw a power just to enable what you're going to do on the next consecutive turns. It really is. I think it's maybe this or the next card that's gonna be the best card in the campaign for me. Really hype for hypos.
Nice, I like that. Ash, what's your position on this soldier bird?
It's a soldier. Oh, I I'm getting nightmares already. Um, yeah, like I understand why they made it soldier, obviously, but yeah, I think that pushes the card. Like, of course, it's costed at 1. It's never ever going to be a 1 drop because of the influence requirements, but the fact that it costs 1 is just so good. Like, Janitor Dovid on 2 into this on 3 with a 2/2 weapon on it is ridiculous. You've got a 4/4 and a 3/4 flyer on turn 3. What? Why? Why is that allowed? Like, Janitor fetches this, so that line of play is not completely unlikely. Even if you just go on turn 3, Janitor into or Janitor, even I keep calling it Janitor because of the Janitor David meme. Even if you just go turn 3, Janitor into Hyphos, right? Just as a 1/2 flyer, even that isn't bad. But yeah, like IP covered it. What doesn't this do? The fact that it's only an Amplify 2 is ridiculous to me. I think it's going to get nerfed to Amplify 3 at some point in the future.
Fair, John.
Yeah, this is man, exactly what the soldier deck needed. You know, it was like a flying do everything for 1, 3, 5 mana, whatever. Who cares? This card's amazing.
I wondered if any like mid-range or control deck plays this as kind of a jack of all trades, right? It could slow down the board on defense. It could be your win con, or it could just kind of help clean up your draws to get you to your top end. I mean, I don't know. That's probably not the case, but it just has so many different modes. I wonder if that would be something that they consider somewhere in there in the list. I mean, I think it's still competing with Diana and stuff like that, and Maeve, but what were you gonna say, John?
I just said potentially. I mean, you know, you just mentioned those are like Karendon cards or whatever. I mean, I'm not Diana per se, but Maeve. I don't know. Like, I think you really want this to go with with the soldier thing, and I think like TJP control, like that's always kind of been a deck people try or whatever. I think it's worth trying this in a shell like that. It's a good point that you made.
You can play this on one turn, stun a bunch of things, and then the following turn play that whatever superior tactics and kill everything, and then draw a card. Boom.
You can do that if you want to.
Oh my god, wait, this soldier line just actually got more disgusting. You can play shock troops on turn 1, and then Janitor on turn 2, and this on 3.
Mm-hmm.
Your board is
Mhm.
absolutely dumb at that point. Oh my
Yep.
god.
But as we have said, that most of the expedition decks on soldiers is really just for you. So we need to like fix the power. Do we need something else with time, or is this just the time slash that the soldier needs? But you can't go wrong with hypos or hypos.
All right, John, you're gonna take point on this absolutely gorgeous artwork here. This is Erd. I have no idea how to pronounce this one. Erd, right? Erd, the drifting song, is a Mandrake bard It's an 8/8, and then it is 8 power for oh gosh darn it, hold on. Vision, Menace. I know this one. Hold on. What am I missing? Hold on. Vision, Menace, Creation, Tradition. This one always draws me a blank. Knowledge. There we go. I got there. I have the knowledge. Ha, I got there. All right. Time, Primal Shadow, which is knowledge. So 8 power, knowledge, influence. When Erd attacks, your mandrakes get +1 strength, flying, endurance, and quick draw. So all your mandrakes, including Erd, get that. Entomb, put 9 copies of Erd into your deck. All right, John, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a really powerful effect, right? Like you said, even Erd itself gets flying, endurance, and quick draw, which are amazing battle skills. +1 attack as well. Why not? The issue with this card, right, is the Entomb effect, putting 9 copies in your deck. Like, it costs 8, so you're generally trying to cheat this out somehow. Like, Shoal Stirrings, comes to mind very quickly as a way to cheat out mandrakes from your void. But as soon as this gets killed, you're like never playing cards again. You're just going to draw 5 copies in a row of this 8-drop that you can't play, and you're going to be like, crap. Right? So you got to like build around that. With this whole Entomb thing in mind, right? Or you might just kind of wreck yourself. So like your deck either has to be able to, not struggle playing an 8-drop, have a fail case here, or have some other way to give Erd maybe Destiny, for example. Then you don't care that there's 9 Destiny, because they all just play themselves for free. Like we already talked about that other card in the set that kind of could go there. So yeah, like that, I think that's how this card is kind of balanced, right? It's not just completely broken, because there's a risk to just Shoal Stirrings out an Erd early, is you're just going to jam yourself up, right? So I don't think it's completely broken. I think it's a fun build around card that's very powerful. Good payoff for going big here.
Show enough. Ash?
Yeah, I think John covered it. Like, my main point is basically what John said about the unit that gives a unit in your void Destiny. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the sweetest thing I would like to do with this. But yeah, you're basically just going to either near perfect imitation into this, or you're going to Shoal Stirrings into this. And yeah, you try and kill your opponent within 1 or 2 turns of this coming into play. I think that's basically what it's going to do, and it's going to be very powerful at that. I think this is going to be a contender for one of the better cards in this set, if people can figure out how to consistently make this work.
I'm just going to turn to seed it. That way you have like 26 copies of seeds in your deck. Boom.
Thank goodness that's not an expedition.
Yeah, thank goodness it's not an expedition.
I think Turn to Frog is the only one that's in expedition.
Yes.
Something like that.
That'd just be the one in your hand. It's in the void anyway. Who cares?
Yeah. IP?
Yeah, I think I can make I have to confer with John to make a good deck with this. You can have it with near perfect imitation, or if you want, we have that new legendary time feature to give it Destiny. So let's see how many we need in the deck, and how can we break this card. It looks really good.
Nice. All right, that's going to do it for a multi-faction. So we have 2 factionless cards that we'll talk about. First one is House Alliance. This is undepleted, or wait, this is power. And then gain an influence in a faction you don't have. Depleted unless you already have all 5 factions. I don't have an acronym for it just yet. If you do, gain an influence of your choice. So if you're lacking any influence, it's going to come in depleted and then give you your choice of the ones you don't have. So that is a resemblance of that power card Unlimited from like a set ago or something like that. And then If you have all 5 somehow, which is doable, then you can take your pick to kind of make sure you can get those from cards transformed, etc., etc. So I don't really think there's too much to add here. I don't think it's that impressive. I think it's still kind of on the underpowered side. It might be more cute. I'm not sure. John, you like getting kind of greedy sometimes. What do you think about House Alliance?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, I agree that it seems like underpowered on the surface. It's like they're just slowly adding pieces to like the Wandering Beholder deck or whatever. Like I don't know. It's definitely like only gonna see potential play in a 5-color only deck, and like most of my 5-color decks have been like World Pyre decks, and they just nerfed the heck out of those with what they did to Silixes recently. So I don't know, and I'm definitely not looking. I'm not trying to brew with Beholder anytime soon, and this doesn't make me want to do that either. Um, I don't know. It's kind of weird and underpowered. I agree with what you said.
Yeah, I don't, Ash, John, or Ash and IP, you guys have anything to add? I don't think there's really much to say about it, right?
I do actually.
Oh, okay.
Please.
Yeah, please. Have at it.
So because 5 faction is underpowered. I have played with this card yesterday and the day before because small tangent if it's not a big thing. I want to play with the moment of creation, right, in Expedition. And I was looking at the removal suite and having the problem of like I want to play every single removal. So I ended up making a 5-color deck with Moment of Creation that had literally only spells in it, right? And it was 5 colors. And I thought, House Alliance, I'll put it in because I'm playing 5 colors, so why not? And it's actually not bad as a power in 5-color decks, right? It is only good in 5-color decks, but very often you get to a point where like you're running all this depleted power anyway. So the fact that it's depleted, like, okay, it's just another depleted power. But very often you get to a point where you just need that one influence that you don't have, right? Or you need that second influence point in something when you already have everything. It really fills that niche that you need in a 5-color deck. But yeah, I think 5-color just doesn't have the support it needs. It has Beacon of the Reach, but yeah, that's Beacon. It's a meme. So yeah, it's not a bad power for what it does, but I think it's underpowered because of where it goes into is underpowered.
Gotcha. I do have one thing to add, I guess. I kind of mentioned 5-color and World Pyre. Like this does not go in a World Pyre deck, despite it being a 5-color deck, because World Pyre only works because you're playing like all dual powers, which is that's how you basically ramp with World Pyre because it counts your number of influence pips. So you want every power to add 2, not 1. So
Good point. IP, anything?
It seems boring. That's it.
All right, fair enough. Then we'll have you run point on Might of the Bastion. This is a 4-power factionless spell. If you have a Grenadin, deal 3 damage. If you have a Mandrake, draw a card. If you have a Sentinel, play a random power card from your deck. If you have a Soldier, your units get +1/+1 permanently. If you have a Valkyrie, gain 5 armor. All right, IP, tell us about Might of the Bastion.
It's a feature type matters card. At the very at most, I could see like you getting 2, maybe 3 effects out of it. I don't think you'll just make a deck that that takes advantage of the full power, and like having a soldier and a Valkyrie doesn't seem that much of an effect, but having a Grenadine counts as a removal. Mandate draws you a card as well, and like Sentinel plays a random power. Grenadine and Mandrake, I have seen. I think there's only one card that shares both of those types, and having it as a DO3 draw card for 4 seems really good. But hopefully, in the future sets, Darwolf Darwolf can print more cards that can take advantage of this. As of now, like I'm just leaning towards either getting Grenadine and Centos or Mandrake and Centos or Mandrake and Grenadine to get good value out of this card. It's too cute to play around, and I don't know, maybe someone's gonna be making a deck to exploit at least 3 out of the 5 things it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. What about you, Ash? What do you think of Might of the Bastion?
I'm gonna get greedy with this. I love this. I think most of you guys know that I love Enemy of My Enemy. I absolutely love that card, and this gives me those type of vibes. You just it's not the same, obviously, but I am going to try and get all 5. I am going to make it my goal to cast the Might of the Bastion with all 5 effects.
It's doable. Shout out to Ant-Man. We played them on the stream today, and they were running Might of the Bastion. They made it happen. So I think similar to what John was talking about with World Pyre using dual power, I think you want to, if you really want to go deep into trying to get max value out of this thing, you just want to play as many units that double up on its unit types as possible.
Agreed, yeah.
John?
Yeah, those are great points. I think yeah, it'll be at its best when you're doing exactly that. I think there's also a fun, maybe like factionless meme you can do with this card, right? Like where it's you're gonna have like some number of these in play at any given point, and you're like, it's like probably the throne one is like better, where you can reduce the cost of this with those powers and everything as well. But yeah, you can just do some fun stuff with it. I think it'll only be good if you're like going more for the combinations of the creature types and things like that. But yeah, I think this is one of the. There's not that many factionless cards in Expedition, so if you want to do a factionless meme, this is definitely going in there, right?
Give it revenge.
Sure.
I think I'm on the same boat as IP though, that the floor for this thing, the minimum value you want to get off of is deal 3 damage and draw a card. The combinations of the others are not horrible, but they're not great either, probably with the weakest being the Valkyrie.
Mm-hmm.
The 5 armor could be relevant in a race or if you're playing a lot of weapons, but like it's probably closer to like a Valkyrie soldier where you're pumping up your Valkyries, because it does pump all your units. You just have to have a soldier in play. But it's gonna be interesting. Like I think really minimum value is probably that 3 damage and draw a card. If you're doing any other variations of the modes, you probably want to try to get at least 3 activations or triggers on it, I should say. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how this card plays out for sure. But all right, guys, that was the last one. So we did it. We got through it. So final statements. John, do you think people should pick up this campaign or not?
I mean, if you like brewing an Expedition, yeah. I think there's a handful of throne decks that get a few upgrades here. So maybe if you're playing one of those as well. But yeah, like I think there's a lot of powerful and fun cards for Expedition here for sure. So if that's your focus, easily. I mean, it's just you can buy it with in-game gold that you can just earn easily by just playing the game. So what's not to like there?
I mean, there are Scion drafts happening this weekend, so that's a reason not to spend your gold on the campaign.
True.
Just saying.
True.
Just saying. All right, IP. Should people get this campaign or not, my friend?
Okay, but if you like playing an Expedition and wanted to see some more shake up with the format, I would heartily agree to you purchasing this. But if you want to get those sweet, sweet risen out arts from the Scion drafts, you can play on those for a while because the campaign's here to stay. You can just pick it up after you've done with your gold privatization.
All right, IP, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show, man. Really appreciate your insight and your participation, friend. So thank you.
So I hope I gave some insightful opinions.
Ash, my friend, buddy. So, should people pick up the campaign or not?
I feel like there's some kind of like ad you can run for this campaign, which just rolls something like, "Do you hate Sling? And do you hate mandrakes? And then just get this campaign." Because Impound and Flash Fire are just great. But yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly with that this campaign is a godsend for brewers in Expedition. I think that's going to be the main purpose. So yeah, I definitely like this a lot and would say pick this up, but maybe for more. Maybe it's not the best campaign to pick up at the start for newer players. I think that is a relevant critique to give.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's something to kind of supplement a collection instead of actually building it up.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show, Ash. Really appreciate it, man. You're always a delightful brewer and stuff, and enjoy troubleshooting with you and chat and whatnot on the team. So thank you so much.
No problem at all.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Hope you enjoyed it, and tell us what you think about the campaign. And, you know, if you got some sweet brews, send them my way. I'll play them on stream. But that's going to do it for this week. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Of course, check us out live every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ, and or check it out on the YouTubes. Just search up youtube.com/EternalJourney. But until next time, as always, happy gaming.
Right.